So we handle the financial aid and billing. This presentation is similar to one that was given during the Minor Welcome Bash. If you were able to attend that, you would have seen a similar presentation. But I'm hoping that we've got people who weren't able to make that still need this information moving forward. So this is a good time of year because we are getting ready to generate the bills. And so this is some good information for you to know about some next steps and things you need to know about financial aid and the billing process in general. So I'm going to go ahead and start it off with some of the financial aid stuff, and then I will turn it over to Caitlin, who will give us some more information about billing and how to make the bill and provide payment options. So go ahead and get started. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're going to break this down into kind of two parts tonight with the financial aid process. We're going to talk about what the cost of attendance is and how to apply for additional scholarships, which is usually a question we get during this presentation. How to find the financial aid offers and how to accept aid in the student portal, how to report private scholarships, and then we'll talk about how aid is dispersed because that's what's coming up next month. And then, as I mentioned, Caitlin will talk a little bit more about billing and payment processes, and you'll know then what the billing due dates are, how to find your billing statement, payment options, how to give others access to make payments, and then if you are due any kind of refund, how to set up direct deposit so you can get that as quickly as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on how to navigate the financial aid process. We'll start with the cost of attendance. What you see here is the 24-25 direct cost. This is what could be billed to the student. Now, our cost of attendance is an average cost. It is not necessarily exactly what a student's going to be billed, but it's going to be pretty close. A cost of attendance is used to determine how much aid a student is eligible to receive. And it gives you a good starting point to budget for the age year. So we are a state institution, so you will see we have a different cost for Missouri residents and versus those who are coming from out of state or international. These rates here are the freshman rates that you will see for the tuition. If you are coming in as a transfer student, your rates are going to be based on your major. And so they may look a little bit different. We have a flat rate tuition, which means we charge the same cost for students who take between 12 and 18 credit hours per semester. So if you take 18, you're paying the same as somebody who is paying 12. So it really behooves a student to take a few more credits in order to move themselves further along in their degree path and graduate a little bit sooner, or at least on time. So we're very excited about that. It also gives the student opportunity to maybe try a class without having an extra cost associated with it. So we are pretty pleased with the flat rate tuition. There are some required student fees that will show up on the bill, and those include activity, facility fees, as well as health service fees. Those are required of all students. It is used to help pay for those services. Those services are available to the student, whether they choose to use them or not. And so they are required of all students who are charged tuition and required fees. The books and supplies amount you see there is an average that our students, based on a survey we do of our students, that's how much they say they spend in 1 year. This is down from previous years, and so we are pretty excited about that. The bookstore has done a really great job of trying to reduce those costs for our students, and so we are pleased to see that continue to go down. Now, depending on how many credits a student is enrolled in or what courses they're taking, that will determine what those book costs are, but that's an average to help you kind of plan. Housing and dining, or housing and food. This amount here assumes that the student is living on campus, so in one of our residential halls. If a student is perhaps living in a fraternity to start off or a sorority, eventually during the first year, their cost may be a little bit different. And their cost will be billed directly to the student. So that's one thing I wanted to point out here, is that if the student is living in residential hall, they will see that information show up on their bill. And it'll be a part of their billing statement when they get that next week. If they are living in a fraternity or sorority, and most times sororities don't let you move in during the first semester. So usually we see fraternities more so in the fall semester. If a student is living in Greek life in general, they bill the student directly. You can still use financial aid for that. What will happen is we will pay all of the financial aid to any charges the student has first, and then anything remaining would get refunded to the student to help pay for those Greek life fees or Greek life expenses. So we'll talk a little bit more about refunds in the billing section, but I wanted to make you aware of that as well. So you can see our estimated cost of attendance per year is a little over, the direct costs, for example, are a little over 28,000 for an in-state student. And for an out-of-state student, it's a little over 46,000. There are some indirect costs that you need to consider as you're planning how to use the financial aid. And those range from $2,300 to $2,600 a year. These include things like transportation or personal expenses. And everybody is going to have a little bit different depending on where they live, how often they go home, do they bring a car to campus, those kind of things. For a complete list of what the cost of attendance looks like for each individual student population, you can find that on the what's currently listed as the financial aid website. We have our cost estimates there that you can drill down a little further into that information. The one thing I want to talk about before I leave this page real quick is about the tuition. As I mentioned, what you see here is the freshman rate. It is guaranteed. The freshman rate is our lowest tuition rate, and it is a discounted rate that we give to students who are new freshmen entering S&T. It is guaranteed for the first semester. And then after that point, once a student reaches 30 credit hours, they would move into a tuition rate that's assigned per their major. And so second semester, if you have 30 credit hours, both from what you took in the fall semester and from what you're bringing in from other college credits, if you reach 30 credit hours, you may see a slight bump up in tuition during your spring semester, but only after you reach those 30 credit hours. So what we show here is assuming that a student would be at the freshman rate for the whole year, but just know that it may be a little bit different from semester to semester. Okay, now that we got through the cost, I'm going to talk a little bit about the financial aid process and things you should know about your financial aid. At the time of admission, we did offer, based on students entering information, we did offer scholarships if students were eligible. These were considered merit-based scholarships, and they were automatically offered. Most of them are renewable for 8 semesters or 4 years with a cumulative GPA of a 3.0. So what that means is at the end of the first academic year, we will check the student's cumulative GPA. And if they have a 3.0, it'll automatically get renewed for the next year. And that will happen for a total of 4 years. We did automatically upgrade a student's scholarship based on their June test score. So if their June test score bumped them up into a higher merit scholarship for freshmen, then it should have automatically increased their merit scholarship. Now, if you did not send your test score to us, I do encourage you to do so that you can qualify for the highest merit scholarship before we actually jump into August and classes start. And just so you know, we did award based on the highest super score. So if you're combined, your highest score from each of the components of the test made a higher score together, then we took that higher score. Whatever your highest composite or super score was, is what we used to determine your scholarship. And then if you are looking for any kind of federal or state aid, such as grants or loans, you did need to complete the free application for federal student aid or the FAFSA. If you haven't completed it yet, I do encourage you to do so, especially if you think that you're going to need to borrow loans, because the FAFSA is required for that. Generally, the FAFSA opens up October 1 each year, and Missouri S&T and the state of Missouri's priority deadline is February 1. So in future years, you'll want to make sure once it opens up October 1 that you get that completed and sent to us before February 1 so that you are being considered for the maximum amount of financial aid. This year was a little bit different because of the FAFSA delays. It didn't open until the end of December, and we moved our priority deadline into April, but that's not going to be the case for next year. So I want to make sure everybody puts that on their calendars now. So there are different types of financial aid that we offer out of the Student Financial Services Office. The first is free money. That's money that the student doesn't have to pay back. Generally, it's offered based on the student's merit or their need. So scholarships are generally based on merit or perhaps maybe talent if you're getting some athletic aid, or maybe a music scholarship or something like that. Then grants are usually based on family income based on the FAFSA information. And so that's where you'll see that federal Pell Grant, the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, or usually shortened to SEOG. And then Access Missouri is the state of Missouri's need-based aid program. And so it is a grant program as well. And it goes to students who are Missouri residents who filed the FAFSA normally by February 1, and whose student aid index on the FAFSA normally goes up to 12,000. This year, because again of the FAFSA delay, the state of Missouri did move their priority deadline, or did move their final deadline till June 1. So we included everybody who filed their FAFSA by June 1, and they went up to an SAI of 20,000. So we included more students in that pot of money from the state of Missouri. And so that's not always going to be the case. Mandatorily, it is February 1 and a 12,000 SAI. So you'll want to make sure that you complete that FAFSA on time each year. But for this year, it is expanded to more students, which is good news. The next pot of money we try to offer is earned money. This is money where a student actually will work to earn that money. They earn a paycheck. Typically, we will award about $3,500 a year. We will help a student find a job on campus, and usually on campus, and they earn a paycheck that goes directly to them that they can use to help pay their tuition and fees, or maybe their housing and food, or any other personal expenses. Once they earn up to the amount that we've offered, so up to that $3,500 for the year, then they would stop working for that year. Typically, students will work 10 to 20 hours a week on work study, and they usually start out at minimum wage, but as they move along, they may earn raises to earn more money per paycheck. Now, if a student was eligible, we would have offered it at the time that we've offered federal aid. However, if work study is not a part of the financial aid package, a student can email the financial aid, the Student Financial Services Office, and ask us to put them on the wait list. And then once funds become available, we will consider everybody on the wait list. Usually that's August and September, and we will help students find a job at that point. The last type of money that we offer students is borrowed money. So this is loans that we would offer a student or a parent, and then they use those funds to pay for their expenses, and then later on have to repay it, usually with interest. And so it is the last piece of aid that we typically offer. We want students to get that free money first, and then we will offer loans at the end. Now, every student who is eligible to file the FAFSA, or that free application for federal student aid, is eligible for federal student loans. And so if you do think that you are going to need to borrow student loans, again, that FAFSA is required for that. but every student who's eligible to file the FAFSA is eligible for those federal student loans. The maximum loan amount that you're going to see for a dependent freshman is $5,500. That's the maximum from the federal government. As you move into sophomore and junior years, that will increase a little bit to $6,500 and then $7,500 a year. We also may have offered a university loan to those who have the highest need. We have a few loan funds that we can offer at the time that we are offering other federal and state aid. And generally, those are then due back to the university once a student graduates, whereas the direct student loans would be due back to the federal government. So you should have seen these types of financial aid on your financial aid offer letter that you received from us if you already received one. Now you might be asking, what can I do next? What other aid can I look at? I would point you to our scholarship database at scholarships.mst.edu. The scholarship database has all the other scholarships on campus that we encourage students to apply for. These are the ones through the Student Financial Services Office, the ones through the academic department, and at this point, 12,000 external scholarships as well. So it's really a one-stop shop for all the other scholarships. Students will log in with their Joe's username and password, and they are asked a series of questions. They can answer as few or as many as they want. The more they answer, the more scholarships they're going to be matched to. So we do encourage students to answer as many as they feel comfortable. Typically, our students will answer between 45 and 60 questions throughout the course of the year to try to get matched to scholarships. But again, there is no set number that you have to reach. It's just whenever you feel like, however many questions you want to answer. Now, most of the scholarships in the scholarship database have a February 1 deadline that we start awarding them. And so a lot of them have been awarded at this point. Almost all of them have been awarded at this point. But as funds become available, and they do throughout the year, we will be reawarding those. So we do, if you have not been in scholarship database, we do encourage students to go in there and at least log in so that when funds become available, they will be included in the next round. And we are reawarding every day, so it is possible that you might still be considered. The scholarship database opens up October 1 each year. And again, most of the deadlines are February 1. So that follows that same FAFSA deadline, open October 1, close February 1. So again, that's something else to put on the calendar. So it will be opening up in here in a few months for the next year. So if you had already submitted the FAFSA, you should have received a paper aid offer letter from us in the mail. And it included an aid offer letter guide that showed you how to read that letter. We encourage you to fully read that letter and the guide, and then follow the instructions on how to accept or decline those awards in Joe's. I will talk about here in a minute. I'll show some screenshots of how you do that in Joe's, but that letter also provides some instructions as well. Now, as I mentioned, the federal direct loans, the maximum for a dependent freshman is $5,500. So that, in addition to any scholarships, grants, or work study that a student might have received, may not be enough to cover that total cost of attendance, and you may need some additional loan options. And so I've listed two here. The first one is a Parent Plus loan. This is a federal loan in the parent's name, based on the parent's credit, and the student has no responsibility to pay it back. It is borrowed through the federal government, similar to federal direct loans. And you can borrow as little as $200 or up to the remaining cost of attendance. So enough to cover tuition fees, housing, dining, books and supplies, personal expenses, etc. It will be up to you how much you want to borrow. And that would all be a part of that application and credit check at studentaid.gov. Now, it is a fixed interest rate loan. However, the interest rate is pretty high right now. I think it's around 9%. So that is something to consider as if you're thinking about maybe applying for that loan. A private student loan is also a credit-based loan, but generally it's in the student's name and based on the student's credit. Typically, students have little to no credit and would need a cosigner. And so that would be something to consider as well. But these are through a lender of your choosing. Now, we do have a preferred lender list on our website that our students have used over the last few years. And we know that they provide good service to our students, and we have a high volume with them. And so we have that QR code there so that you can find that information on our preferred lender list. And you can actually apply right to that list as well. Generally, since these are outside lenders, you're going to have a mix of variable and fixed interest rates. And typically the interest rates are going to be lower than that Parent Plus loan because but they will be more based on the student and the parent's credit, whereas the Parent Plus loan, the interest rate does not vary depending on credit. So there are a couple loan options there for you as well. Please look at the financial aid checklist that's in that aid offer letter guide because it's going to give you the next steps, but we have begun sending out emails to students as well, telling them what their next steps are. For instance, if the student is going to borrow a federal student loan, they have to accept them in JOES, they have to sign a promissory note, and they have to complete entrance counseling in order to receive the loans, at least for that first year. In future years, the promissory note and entrance counseling, those are good for 10 years. So in the future, the student will just file a FAFSA and accept them in JOES if they're going to borrow them. But for this first year borrowers, they will need to complete all those steps. And so that checklist will guide them on how to do that. As I mentioned, we have begun emailing students, and the official communication of the university is their S&T email. So it's very important the students have that set up and they are checking it. Admissions up until this point had been communicating students to their personal email and copying in the parents. Once students are enrolled, all of the emails will go to the S&T email, and generally parents are not included in that. And so again, that will be another reason why the students need to have those set up, and they should be checking them, especially during the summer when parents may be helping students guide them through all the steps that they need to take. It'll be easier when they're with you during the summer. So now I'm going to talk about how to get into JOES, which is a student portal, and how to accept financial aid. So if your student has already been registered for classes, they came to an A&R or they did a virtual A&R and they enrolled in classes, they've already seen JOES, so they should be familiar with this. But when they log into joes.mst.edu, JOES stands for Joe Self-Service. It is our student portal that they're going to use to register for classes, look at their aid, see any to-do list items, and they'll also see their financial information in there as well. And so it's something they're going to use pretty frequently while they're here at S&T. So they're going to log in with their user ID and password, which is the same user ID and password they logged into the scholarship database, same one they use for the email. It's a single sign-on, so it'll cover all of those login opportunities. They'll use their email address, and so you can see here it says sign in, and the example is username at umsystem.edu. If they need to log in that way, so they will log in with their at umsystem.edu address, and then they should come to a page that includes tiles that you'll see here. We are going to focus now on the financial aid tile. So financial aid is where you're going to see what the aid offers are. You're also going to be able to accept or decline aid here. So as you can see, if you click on that financial aid tile, it'll go to accept, decline awards. It will then show you every aid year or academic year that a student is receiving aid for. And you'll be able to click on each individual year to determine what kind of aid is available for that particular year. Now, new students, you're only going to see 2025 at this point, and that includes the fall 24, spring 25 aid year, and it will also include summer 25 in the future. Next year, when we offer aid, you're going to see 2026 and so on and so forth. So while a student is here, you're going to get to see all years in this one area here. So if they click on the aid year, it's going to show them the aid that they've received that we've offered them, and it should be the same that's on their financial aid offer letter. This is what we've offered for the age year. You can see it lists the awards on the left-hand side. If the student clicks on the award links, they'll receive some more information about those particular awards. It also shows whether it is a loan, scholarship, or a grant. So you know that if it's a loan, the student's going to have to repay that, or maybe the parent's going to have to repay that. If it's a scholarship or a grant, that's free money they don't have to repay. So that gives you more information. Now, any of that free money, grants or scholarships, we assume students want, and so we have accepted it for them on their behalf. The exception to this is if it's a private scholarship, it won't be accepted until we actually receive the money, but every other scholarship is already accepted for the student. They don't have to do anything else. Loans and work study, however, the student would need to choose whether they want to borrow or work. And so they will need to click accept or decline next to that loan or work study option. If they want to reduce it, they can. Once they hit accept, it'll ask if they want to reduce it to a certain amount. Just know that the amount you see here is for the fall and spring semesters. So if a student says, let's say the student was offered $5,500, they only want to borrow $2,000 and they go to reduce it in Joe's. When they do that, it's going to reduce it to $1,000 for fall and $1,000 for spring. It's not going to give them $2,000 for the fall semester. If a student is looking to maybe do one semester at a time, they just need to contact the Student Financial Services Office and we can handle that for them. To do it themselves, it is for the whole year when they are in Joe's. Now, don't forget to hit submit, and then there will be an OK button. Sometimes our students say, well, I did click accept, but it didn't go through because they didn't hit submit and then OK after that. If a student is getting private scholarships from an outside entity, those all need to come to the Student Financial Services Office. If the check is made out to the institution, and so Missouri S&T and the student, they do not need to endorse it. We have a stamp for that. If it's made out to the student, it still needs to come to us and we will apply it to the student's account. Now, if your student has already cashed that check, please let us know because we do still need to count it as a part of their financial aid. But in the meantime, before you actually get that check, some donors don't send it until maybe you actually start classes. You can go ahead and report it to us now in Joe's. And so in that financial aid tile, there was a report other aid. And there is a QR code here that leads you to an instruction site that shows you how to do it. But basically, you'll tell us what the name of the scholarship is, how much is for fall, how much is for spring, and we will put it on as private scholarship number 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And it will go on as an offer, but it will go on and apply towards the student's bill, so that's less they have to pay. So even though you may not have the check now, if you already know you have a private scholarship coming, please go ahead and report it to us so that we can go ahead and reduce and deduct that from your bill that's upcoming. Now, the aid that you have out there is anticipated. So it is what we anticipate we are going to be able to disperse to help cover the bill. It does not actually disperse to the student's account until 10 days prior to the start of classes. In the spring, it's 8 days because we start on a Tuesday. So, but generally, it is 10 days before classes start. So classes start this year in August on the 19th. That means on the 9th is when we are going to process the first disbursements. You should see, and Caitlin will talk a little bit more about this, you should see your aid move from anticipated to a credit to cover that bill. If for some reason it does not pay, then please contact the Student Financial Services Office to find out if there is something that's holding it up. Students will also see in their to-do list items that may be holding up their aid. And so I would encourage students to go out down to Joe's, check their to-do list, see if there's anything waiting that's going to stop that aid from dispersing. All aid should disperse with the they should disperse with that first disbursement with the exception of 2 types of aid. The first is going to be state aid or Bright Light and Access. We cannot disperse that until the state sends us the money, and that's usually the beginning of September. So it'll still count as anticipated aid, it'll still deduct from the bill, but it won't actually show up as a credit until early in September. The second piece of aid is any scholarships that are named. So if you've got a scholarship from a donor, we have a thank you note process that happens the first week of classes. So your disbursement will not happen 10 days before classes start. It will wait until you actually attend that thank you note event. And then that will be released that first week of class to you. So you should see by the beginning of September or by the middle of September, all of your aid, including Access and Bright Light, should have moved and to pay your bill. So the last thing that I'm going to leave you with before I hand it over to Caitlin is that now that students are enrolled, if your student has already enrolled in classes, they already came to A&R, their information is protected under FERPA, or the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. What that means is that we cannot share any information about that student unless the student has given the parent or the legal guardian or the loved one access to do so. There are two accesses that the student can give for us to talk about financial aid information. And both can be found under the personal information tile in JOES under information privacy. The first is AAA, additional authorized access, which allows students to give different types of access, maybe to the grades, to their demographic information, but it also gives it to their financial aid information. This means that a parent or loved one can log in with their own login and see the information the student has granted them access to, so that's visual access. So if you're going to be emailing us any questions about the student's financial aid, that AAA permission needs to be in place. The FERPA permission is via phone. So if you want to give us a call and ask us questions on the student's behalf, the student needs to make sure they've given you FERPA permission and you are calling from the phone number that they entered into that section. So from here forward, it's really a good idea if students set up whoever they want to talk to us on their behalf. Go ahead and get you set up with AAA and FERPA permission so that you're covered from here forward. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Caitlin, who's going to talk about the billing and payment process. So Caitlin, if you want to take control. Yeah.
All right. So did I take, is it good now, Bridget? Okay. All right, so my name is Caitlin Kelly, and I'm the Director of Cashiers and Student Loan Collections. I'm going to be going over the billing, the payment options, and the refund processing. So all current enrolled students receive electronic bills. Whenever the billing statements generate, there will be an email notification that will go out to the student and then also any additional authorized access user that's been set up with billing. So the billing statements generate around the 15th of each month, and the due date is always the 10th of the following month. So just be aware to be watching for those email notifications around the middle of each month, and maybe put a note on your calendar or whatever you need to just to be able to go out to make sure you check your email at that time to be able to view the billing. To view the bills, the students just have to log on to JOESS and they go to the Student Center and they click on the financial account tile. And then on the left side panel menu, they will click Proceed to TouchNet. That should generate a pop-up window that they're able to use their single sign-on to TouchNet. And then they will arrive on the TouchNet homepage where they can view the billing, be able to submit payments, refund processing, all those types of details. Students can also grant parents, spouses, anyone that they want to grant access to. They can grant access to JOES, and then to be able to view all the billing information, they also have to grant additional authorized access within TouchNet. Since it's a third-party company, there is additional access that has to be granted within TouchNet to be able to view all the billing information. So just be aware there is additional access that has to be granted within the TouchNet. Our billing due dates, we have 4 for the fall, 4 for the spring, and 3 for the summer. We'll be generating this first bill July 15th, so it's coming up pretty quickly on this upcoming Monday. And that first payment will be expected to be paid by August 10th. So just be mindful of that. So once a student logs on to Joe's and clicks the financial account tile, then clicks proceed to TouchNet, it should generate a pop-up window. Now, something to be aware of is to make sure that the browser that you're using isn't blocking pop-ups. We do have a lot of people that will contact us that say that they click proceed to TouchNet and nothing is happening. And this is usually because the pop-up is being blocked by the browser. So just be making sure to check your pop-up blockers on that browser to make sure that that window does appear for you. Once you log in to TouchNet, this is the homepage that you'll be greeted with. So on the left-hand side there, or on the right-hand side, I guess, or left, sorry. We have announcements. We do update those announcements throughout the year, depending on what we have going on at that time of year. So right now, if you were to go on our announcement page, we would have some details about refunds because that's a lot of questions that we get right now because we're going to be beginning those soon. Around tax time, we'll update with 1098T answers and questions. So do pay attention to that because we do have information that we do update throughout the year in those announcement panels. At the top of the page, you'll see where it has my account, make payment, refunds. Below there in the middle of the page where it has student account, and you see that there's balance and then there's an amount there. That purple balance and that purple zero amount there, if you click into those are hyperlinked and they will take you to account activity pages where it will give you a semester breakdown of all the debits and credits that have been applied to each term. So there's a great amount of detail that you can find out there by just clicking into those areas on TouchNet. A lot of people use those for, additional information for tax purposes each year. You can go out there and print off those pages to provide to your tax accountant. So just be aware of those. Statements, in the middle of the page there, you'll see the billing statement where you could click view statement, and that will take you to all the statements that we've ever generated for the student. And it is a PDF that you're able to print off if you need to mail in with your check payment. 1098Ts are also housed on TouchNet. So whenever we load those towards the end of January, they will also be loaded here on TouchNet, and you'll be able to view them there right below where the billing statements are housed. On the right-hand side, you'll have an area where you have authorized users. So that's where the students would go if they're wishing to add additional authorized access for individuals, whether it's parents, spouses, whoever they want to add access for. They are also able to update personal information and payment information. You have the ability to have a saved payment profile that you can set up so that you're not having to constantly enter in details for payments. So you have that, and you can also set up direct deposit within that payment profile. And then we also have down below there where you'll see electronic refunds. That is where you would be able to view any type of refunds that we've issued off of the student account. This is an example of what you can expect to see on the billing statement. So in the upper right-hand corner, it will provide the adjusted amount due, and it will also have the minimum payment option. The minimum payment option, this is the only area that you can view that minimum payment amount. So just be aware of that when you're going in to make that payment. If you go to TouchNet and you click make payment and you hit that payment screen, it doesn't provide the minimum payment amount there. So you will have to go to the PDF of the bill, look into the right-hand corner to get that amount. Then you can input that amount into that open field box if you wish to pay the minimum instead of the adjusted amount due. And then it also provides in the upper right-hand corner the due date that we expect that minimum payment to be met by. If you choose to do the minimum payment instead of the adjusted amount due, you will have to be paying a 1% finance charge on the carried balance. If you fail to make at least the minimum payment by the due date, then you will also be assessed a $10 late payment fee. Middle of the page there in the statement details under the academic related activity, that's types of charges that you'll see reflected there: tuition and tuition related expenses. Other charges, what would feed into that area would be the academic testing fee, bookstore charges, parking permits, those types of things. And then you can see that you'll have the room and board charges listed there if the student is in on-campus housing. And just to make a note, fraternities and sororities are not considered on-campus housing. So if your student is going to be in one of those types of housing situations, that's a payment arrangement that you would have to be making with those areas. And on the very first statement here, you're going to be seeing all the aid listed as anticipated aid, because aid won't disperse until closer to the start of the semester. So everything on this very first statement that's going to be generating on Monday would be reflected as anticipated aid. Once the aid actually pays to the account, then it should cycle from anticipated aid and then be reflected as payments and credits on the statement. If it reaches the third billing statement and you're still seeing aid listed as anticipated instead of under payments and credits, that's a good time to reach out to student financial aid or your counselor or whoever you need to reach out to make sure that there isn't some action that you need to complete to ensure that aid actually pays to the student account. So just be watchful of that. If it reaches the third billing statement, you're still seeing anticipated aid. So it's a good time to reach out. Our payment options, we have the option online with TouchNet to either pay with an e-check or with a credit card. We do recommend doing the e-check over the credit card because with the credit card, there is a credit card processing fee of 2.85% that is assessed. So it's definitely a lot cheaper to do the e-check option. So definitely recommend that over the credit card. You do also have the option to either mail in a check payment or we have a drop box outside the cashier office where a student, if they're on campus, they can just walk over and just drop it in our drop box. Or you can drop it off to one of the staff individuals during our open hours. If you're going to be mailing in a check payment, we recommend, or even dropping it off in the drop box, we really need, if you're not going to supply the payment voucher that's at the bottom of the bill, that you supply us with the student ID number on the memo line of the check. That way we ensure that it gets applied to the correct account, because we do have a lot of students with the same name. So if you just simply write the student's name in that memo line, it becomes a guessing game on our side as to who we need to apply this to. So please make sure to write that student ID number on the memo line of those check payments. If you choose to make the payment online through TouchNet, the student's just going to be logging on to JoeSS and clicking on that financial account tile, proceeding to TouchNet, and then they're just going to click make a payment at the top ribbon menu. And then in the middle of the screen there, click make a payment, and then it will take them to this screen where you will be able to enter in what you're wanting to pay. So as I said earlier, the minimum payment amount is not provided in this area. So if you're wanting to pay that minimum payment amount, you can just go ahead and select any of those options: current account balance, current statement amount, any of those that you choose, and then it will create an open field box for you to actually input the amount that you want to pay. It doesn't matter which of those that you choose, and when it comes to entering into that open field box, the system is going to take that payment and it's going to apply it to the oldest charges. So sometimes we get a lot of questions about which one of these do I need to choose. The system is going to take that payment, it's going to apply it to the oldest charges. So it doesn't really matter which of those. Really, that select payment option is if a person is wanting it to sort of feed that amount into the open field box instead of having to input it manually. That's really the purpose behind it. But if you're wanting to do the minimum payment, you would just have to change the amount in that open field box to match the amount that's reflected in the upper right-hand corner of the PDF of the bill. One benefit, the biggest benefit of making it a payment online through TouchNet is that you'll actually get a formal receipt. If you're mailing in a payment to our office and we're just applying it to the student account, you'll be able to have record of it within the account activity pages where the payment's been posted, but you're not going to have a formal receipt. You're just going to be printing, screenshots of TouchNet's account activity pages. So, but if you make the payment online with either an e-check or the credit card, you will have this receipt that you will receive by email. And if you're doing a credit card, it will have an extra line for the convenience fee, noting the convenience fee amount for your records. Additional authorized access that students can grant within JOES. They have the ability to choose what information that you're able to view. So the student can choose student account information, academic, directory, and financial aid. To grant that access, they just simply log on to JOES and they navigate to their personal tile and select information privacy from the left side menu and then select additional authorized access. That will prompt an email to be sent to that individual for them to be able to create their own single sign-on into JOESS. Now, as I said earlier, since TouchNet is a third-party company, if you want to be able to get all the billing information, like the billing notifications, the ability to make payments, view refunds, those types of things, the student would also need to grant you access or grant you authorized user access within TouchNet. So to do that, they just have to go to JOES, they click on that financial account tile, proceed to TouchNet. Once they're on this homepage of TouchNet, they're just going to click authorized users and they're just going to follow the prompts. It's going to ask, the contact information of that individual, and it's going to send an email to them for them to be able to create their own single sign-on for TouchNet. One thing I did want to note, because we have a lot of parents that will call because with our email notification that goes out for the bills, it provides a link. And a lot of parents save those links so they can use that as a quick way to be able to sign into TouchNet. If at any time you delete that email and you don't know where you need to go to be able to sign into JOES to be able to proceed to TouchNet, we just want to make sure that whenever you do so that you go to registrar.mst.edu/JOESS/. If you're on that page, you're going to click where it's highlighted there on the screen a bit under guest access, additional authorized access. We just want to make that note because we do have a lot of families that will delete that email notification and then will want us to help walk them through, which if you're having problems, feel free to contact us and we'll help you, but we just wanted to put that in this form to try to help people ahead of time. Okay, so refunds. As Bridget already said earlier, they will begin issuing financial aid disbursements around 8 to 10 days prior to the semester beginning. On our side, we will start processing refunds the week before classes begin. So the Monday before classes begin, we'll start processing out those refunds. We really recommend everybody to set up direct deposit within TouchNet. If you set up direct deposit, you're going to get that refund. Once we issue it, you'll have that refund in that bank account approximately 3 to 5 days from our issuance. If you do not have direct deposit set up, then the default is for us to send a paper check. That paper check does not come from the Rolla campus. It comes actually from System out of Columbia. And there's a lot of problems that can come about waiting for the paper check. First off, if the student hasn't updated their addresses and it goes to an incorrect address, or it gets lost in the mail, or whatever may happen along the way of that check actually arriving at where it needs to. If you don't have that check and it does get lost or it goes to a wrong address, we have to wait 30 days before we can void the original issuance of that refund and issue a replacement. So there's a large delay there in you having that money to be able to maybe pay that fraternity or sorority, or, if the student's in some type of rental housing, so please set up direct deposit so that that student can get that refund as quickly as possible and as seamlessly. So to manage direct deposit, the student's just going to do what they've done for everything else. To get to TouchNet, they're going to go to JOES, financial account tile, proceed to TouchNet. Once you're on that home page, they're just going to click on payment profile, and they're just going to input in the routing number and account number and all those relevant details for us to be able to issue that direct deposit to that account. And also too, any parents that have that are receiving Parent Plus loans that are going to be paying to the term, and you want that money to go to you and not to the student, and you can also set up your own direct deposit underneath your profile on TouchNet so that when we process any refunds that are against Parent Plus loans, that money can go directly to your account instead of having to receive a paper check. So that about wraps it up for our presentation today. Both of our offices are located within Parker Hall. And we've got open hours that students and parents are able to come and talk to us face to face. We're constantly answering our phones and responding to emails, but I would recommend also checking out our websites because there is a lot of relevant information out there. And the majority of the questions that you have, the answer is more than likely on the website. So if there's a time where you're outside of our open hours and you're needing an answer to a question on a weekend or a weeknight, I definitely recommend going to our websites because you could probably find the answer there. So I'll go ahead and pass that back off to Janice.
Perfect. Thank you both. We have a few questions in chat.
All right.
The first is, I just wanted to know if you could get a RA job while in the work study program.
So I think we'd have to probably confirm that with Res Life. So as an RA, you're there for your floor or whatever. Stop sharing. And so the payment that you're getting for being an RA is free room and board. So free room or free housing and food. And so it's possible that you may not have time to do both an RA and a work study job, but that's definitely something that we probably need to double check with Res Life. I'm not positive.
Thank you.
I do know working other jobs continuously together is usually a no-go because you can't work more than 20 hours. But as an RA, getting free or that's something. Sorry.
Thank you. Another question. Could you go over the aid that involves the ceremony? I was not clear on that.
Yeah, so any scholarships that are named, meaning like the Bridget Bett Scholarship, Caitlin Kelly Scholarship, anything that has a name to it, was given to you from a donor. And so there is a thank you note process that first week of class where the student will go to our alumni house and they get some goodies and take their picture, but they also write a thank you note to the donor as a thank you for the scholarship. And so then once those events have passed and the student has visited the alumni house, then that will disperse to the student's account.
Can a student do a direct deposit from their bank to Touch?
Direct deposit. So I assume they're meaning like an e-check payment, I guess. I don't.
That would be my guess.
Yeah. So yes, they can. You can go out on TouchNet and submit an e-check payment. There is also the option to schedule a payment. So if you are wanting to like schedule a future payment, you can also do that for a date off into the future if you've got money that that's going to be hitting the account at a later date.
Can one pay the monthly bill for the fall semester from a Missouri 529 account electronically to TouchNet?
If it's Missouri Most, yes. Missouri Most is set up with Flywire to be able to have electronic payments come to our institution. If it is anything other than Missouri Most, the majority of those will come to us. You'll request the funds to be sent to our university, and it will come to us in the form of a paper check. And I do recommend allowing about 2 weeks time of processing from the time that you initiate those requests from the 529 source, because it usually takes 2 weeks before we actually receive the paper check.
Regarding scholarships, we are only seeing the Border County Extra Scholarship in the student account balance and not the larger estimated Border County award. Is there a reason why both are not showing up out there?
So the Border County Award is a waiver of the difference between in-state and out-of-state tuition. And those are being worked right now. The bill comes out July 15th, so we are still putting on aid between now and then. And so those should be put on this week so that it shows up on that when you actually get a billing statement next week.
Let's see, can you go over how to see the full bill in TouchNet again?
Okay, to see the bill in TouchNet, first off, we haven't generated the bill yet. So the billing statement won't generate the first one until Monday. Once that billing statement generates, the student and any additional authorized user will receive an email notification with a link that they can click into that will allow them to log on to TouchNet and be able to view that bill. Once they're on the home page of TouchNet, around about middle of the page, you'll see an area that says statements, and they just have to click view statement, and they can go to the statement that will present on Monday. Now, if it's in between a bill generating on that TouchNet homepage underneath where it says balance, that information will reflect what the current charges are for this term. So even right now, if the student is registered for classes, they should have fees already assessing on TouchNet that you can view at this time, even before the actual formal statement is generated on Monday.
Should we start applications for private loans now or wait till the bill comes out next week?
So that's going to be a personal choice. So if you know how much you want to borrow, I would encourage you to go ahead and do that now. Because it will take a few days for us to get that from the lender. And because we're going to be getting so many requests at that same time, it will take a little bit for us to get that on there. If you are not sure yet what you want to borrow, we don't want you to borrow more than what you think you need. And so you may want to wait until you get that bill next week and then borrow at that point. Now, if you go ahead and borrow now and you decide later that it's more than what you need, you just contact the Student Financial Services office and we will reduce it for you. So if you want to go ahead and get it taken care of now, we can make changes to it later if you'd like.
As for Missouri Access increasing SAI requirement, can you explain that further? And is it for direct funds to students or for loans?
So Access Missouri is the state of Missouri's need-based aid grant program. And so it is a grant program that students would have qualified for based on their FAFSA information. When they completed the FAFSA and they used families' income on the FAFSA, that came up, it goes through a FAFSA calculation and it determines what a student aid index number is for that student. That number determines what kind of federal, state, and institutional need-based aid a student is eligible to receive. And the criteria for Access Missouri requires an SAI or student aid index of 12,000 or below. For this year, they have increased it just for this year for SAIs of 20,000 and below. So if you got your FAFSA and your SAI is 20,000 or below and you're a Missouri resident, you might qualify for Access if you did that FAFSA before June 1. In the future, you'll do it before February 1 and the SAI would be 12,000 or below.
Looks like we have about 2 more questions. I want to be mindful of everyone's time. But the next one is, are housing costs already part of the student account balance? If not, where do I find housing costs and when must they be paid?
So right now, the housing has not yet been charged, the student accounts. Actually, that process is being worked out. It was being worked out in testing today. So it will more than likely be posted in production tomorrow. So tomorrow, I would assume you would be able to start seeing those charges reflected on TouchNet for housing.
Okay. And then I have 6 pending scholarships in review. When will I find out if I receive any of those?
So my guess is you're looking in scholarships.mst.edu. The majority of those have already been awarded and you are sitting there in review in case funding becomes available. So if you have not been awarded at this time, it's safe to think that you're not going to be awarded before the bill is generated. Now, you may still be awarded later on in the year, but most likely it won't be in the next month or so because we've already awarded those at this point.
Perfect.
If it's one through an academic department, there are a handful that they are still working through committee. And so it will be up to the department on how long that will take. The majority have been awarded.
Okay, final two questions. What is the due date for accepting a loan?
If you want it to show as deducting from your bill when the billing statement is generated next week, you'll want to do it before then. So you'll want to do it this week in order for it to be included. If you accept the loan after the billing statement is generated, it will not update your bill because the bill is only generated once a month. And so if you'd like an updated amount due, you'll have to contact us to confirm that. So if you know you're going to borrow it, I would encourage you to do it this week.
And last question, how do you know if we received Access Missouri funds based on the new criteria? Is it automatic? And when would this show up in a student account?
At this point, we have made all the awards we think that we are going to be able to make for Access Missouri. So they should all be showing in Joe's right now and showing as an anticipated date when the billing statement comes out. Now, the state of Missouri is reprocessing their evaluation in their system, and they are doing that next week. And so if that makes somebody else eligible that we missed, we will add it at that point. But we're pretty sure we've got 98% of all eligible students awarded at this time.
Thank you both. One question that we did receive in chat is whether or not this presentation would be available, and it will be on our admissions YouTube channel. So yes, you will have access to that. With that being said, I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. A special thanks to Bridget Betts and Caitlin Kelly for sharing their knowledge with us. Again, we appreciate all of you being here, and we look forward to seeing you on campus in the fall. Have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.